With which issue should you begin a negotiation? You will always face this question. The sequence in which you discuss issues can seriously influence the final outcome. Whether you are a pro or a beginner, you must think this through. In just a few minutes, you will discover 3 basic approaches, each with advantages and disadvantages. Hi, I'm Henk Botha, a negotiation expert and negotiation trainer. People call me the negotiation advocate because I also happen to be an advocate of the High Court of South Africa. There are 3 basic approaches. The first approach is to begin with the most contentious issues. These are the issues that are vital or important to both sides and that are the most difficult to resolve. The advantage of this approach is that you will not waste time on the minor issues if you cannot settle the major ones. This approach may consequently cut down the time you spend on the negotiations. Yet there are 2 drawbacks of this approach. One is that you may create an atmosphere of futility if you cannot progress on that major issue. Another disadvantage is that the minor issues might never get attention that they deserve. The second approach is to begin with the less contentious issues. Typically, less contentious issues are those issues that are just pleasing to you. Consequently, you can easily concede them and create momentum for the negotiation. Again, this approach has certain advantages and disadvantages. On the advantage side, you should consider that small successes create a climate of progress. The sooner you can get the other person to agree to something, the sooner the negotiations will get direction. In addition, agreement on smaller issues create the impression that agreement is possible in respect of the more difficult or tricky ones as well. The third advantage is that it becomes increasingly difficult for the other person to walk away from the deal once you have agreed on some minor issues. Here you must consider that an issue that might be pleasing or minor to you might be important or vital to your counterpart. That is why it might be more difficult for him to walk away from the negotiation table. Moreover, those deals, taken collectively, may be very attractive to your counterpart and may give you extra leverage to get agreement on all the issues. Yes, the second advantage is a two-edged sword. It contains a serious drawback. If you agree to some minor or pleasing issues that are important or vital to the other person, you may be giving away your levers. Your counterpart may strip you of your leverage and then hit you with his or her levers. You may minimize your risk, however. You must tell your counterpart that any concession depends on agreeing a package deal. Anything that you agree shall remain tentative until you agree to the final deal. In that way, you preserve your leverage. Never leave your most important issues until the very end, however. By then, you might have lost or exhausted most of your leverage. You cannot negotiate effectively without levers. The third approach is to begin with any issue. Here too, there is at least one advantage and one drawback. The advantage is that you may confuse your counterpart about your priorities. However, your counterpart might think that you are confused yourself. Of course, that might be what you want your counterpart to think. The drawback could then serve as an advantage. Can you ever afford to engage in a negotiation without having considered which approach to follow? I'm not recommending any specific approach. Too many variables could influence this choice. I do suggest, however, that you carefully look at these approaches and select the one that suits a particular negotiation. Consider the possible advantages and disadvantages of each. Your main aim should be to select the approach where the advantages will outweigh the disadvantages. Whatever approach you select, however, retain enough flexibility in case your opponent succeeds in getting you to agree to a different sequence. If you have rigidly planned a particular sequence, you may have a disadvantage if the other person forces you to deviate from it. For more helpful tutorials on negotiation, like me on Facebook or visit my website henkbotha.com. I'm Henk Botha, signing off.